Welcome back, everybody, to another Faith Family podcast. We're glad to have you back with us. And we've got Krystina Hill back with us. Welcome back, Krystina.
Thank you.
We're glad to have you back in town. It's Girl Talk Week, so we got that coming up while we're a couple days from when we're taping this. We're speaking to the youth tonight. We put you to work when you come back in town. So how's everything going with you and Derek and the family?
It's going good.
Yes. Kids are growing.
Yes, very quickly.
Hitting new phases all the time, I'm sure, and learning new things all the time.
Yep, learning to apply ourselves with our homework. And every day can't be fun day.
Right.
So that's all right. It's a good lesson to learn.
Yes, and so how long have you and Derek been married now?
Well, coming up on 15 years in May.
Okay, coming up.
And we were talking about how it doesn't feel like 15 whole years. It just, somewhere in there, you think a few years flew by.
Yes.
I think it's having little ones.
Right,
You
absolutely.
just go through all the phases and changes, and then you're like, wow, we're hitting a milestone this year.
Right, right. Do you want to kind of reintroduce yourself, kind of explain a little bit what you do when you're at home, kind of your education background, that kind of stuff?
Sure. I graduated from Texas Christian University with a degree in education, and then I moved to Springfield, Missouri for a master's in education and school counseling, and I love that. So Derek and I met while I was finishing my degree, and then he followed me to Texas to visit, and my parents liked him. So we ended up getting married and moved back to Springfield, and that's where we live and raise our girls. And Derek is in law enforcement, and our girls are now 9 and 5. And so I substitute teach at their private Christian school, and I also teach as adjunct faculty for Evangel University. So I like all the things.
9 years old. This is going to sound so cliche, I know, but it feels like yesterday that we drove up there to see little Emma.
Right.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
It goes so fast.
I remember holding her in my arms. Now she's 9 years old.
Yeah, 9, and later this year she'll hit double digits, and I think I'm not old enough for that. I remind myself, yes, I am. Where does the time go?
Yes, it goes quick, doesn't it?
It does.
It goes quick.
It's just, it's easier parenting another one after, because you're like, oh yes, I've done this. I know what to do. Mm-hmm. I know how to help get through this phase. Mm-hmm. But they're each so unique in their personalities, as you know. Right. They're a different child. So some things I've had to learn do not always work with the second one.
Right.
The second one's a little bit quicker and craftier too. So.
Yes, yes. That's good to keep you on your toes.
Yes.
Yes. Well, let's talk a little bit about parenting today, and talk about some of these big decisions and these big moments in your child's life, because obviously the ultimate goal is that, as Pastor always says, well married, well educated, and happily married and on their own, which is the end goal, mm-hmm. right?
Yes.
And some of those big important decisions that we're training our kids to make, and we want to carry through, not just when they're 9 or 5 or 15, but when they're especially young adults, because parenting does not stop when they turn 18 at all.
No, and it's heartbreaking sometimes when you see that switch in parents, where I had a parent tell me last week that she felt more as a guide for her children, that she was guiding them in their decisions while they're young, so that she could just set them free when they're 17 and they graduate high school, and then she could just be a resource. So I told Derek that. I said, I thought we were on like some kind of a track with that, until she's like, I just set them free. And I thought, okay, but then, she has a daughter who's early 20s, married, but having babies already. Mm-hmm. And so it's just kind of a different aspect to it versus my parents, where we do things in a certain order. So you graduate high school, you get a degree that will get you a job, not just a made-up degree. Mm-hmm. And then you meet someone and you get married, but not till you're done with your education. Mm-hmm. That way things aren't out of order and you're not trying to catch up.
Right, that's so interesting, because that's the world's viewpoint, right? Mm-hmm. Of just, I want my just to let my kids go free. Well, I don't know that there ever is a point where you just feel like you just let your kids go free. I mean,
It's yeah, they're still trying to navigate, how do I get from point A to point B? How do I
right,
sign up for these classes? What do I major in? And you don't want them to make a mistake. I mean, it's as simple as, are you actually registering for the classes that count for your degree?
right.
And those
Yes,
simple things that they can
yes,
easily make a mistake on.
right.
And
Double checking.
or driving, as you know, driving to a surprise visit your kids at college. Hello, what
Yes,
are you doing?
here I am.
I'm gonna look through your room while I'm here.
Yes. Oh, what's going on in here? Yes.
Yes, you can't just hope everything is gonna magically turn out. You have to do a little inspection and still a little coaching and parenting along the way.
Right. So, how did your parents do that for you on those big? Because hopefully they don't want to get you in trouble, Christina. But I imagine there was probably a few points where your parents were talking to you, and you're like, okay, okay.
So, funny story, when I lived in Springfield, I still 21, 22 at that point, and so young, but 20. So some would say, oh, she'll figure it out. She'll be
Right.
totally fine.
Right.
Well, I am doing my classes and, meet someone, dating, didn't work out. And I think, oh, what am I doing? Maybe I just don't finish. Maybe I just go ahead and move back. And my dad's thinking, no.
Right.
What?
Right.
And so I think at that point, yeah, it's a good thing for a parent to step in and provide a little perspective. And
Yes.
they had my big brother do that of, she may tune us out again with our whole, we don't quit. We finish what we start. This is an investment into the rest of your future. These classes sometimes don't transfer. You're close. You don't
Right.
just stop going.
Right.
So, and they had Austin, share his perspective too. So, sometimes you just have to still parent and say, we don't quit. We don't
Right.
give up.
Right.
And yeah, this is short term.
Right.
But think about long term. You'll have accomplished something.
Right. To get the right perspective.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people's perspective can get distracted.
And when they're younger, you have tunnel vision.
Yes.
You can't look at the grand picture
Right.
of, okay, your dating life has nothing to do with you finishing this degree.
Yes, right.
Like the cost and
Right.
then transferring credits. And so young people sometimes act on the emotions, and the emotions change from week to week.
Right.
You have to look at it from a practical standpoint.
Yeah, I think Kristen and I have tried to ask the right questions when they're making decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I know you want to make this decision because you feel this way, but okay, let's look at, like you're talking about, from that long-term perspective. How is this going to get you there? Or how is this going to benefit you? To help them not get caught up in the things that don't really matter.
Yeah.
But what's the main important issue here?
Yeah, and so the goal is, okay, you're going to finish this degree. So that's
Right.
what you set out to do, and nothing changes that.
Right.
You're going to stick it out.
Right.
Like, this is not option A or option B, this is the option.
Right.
So it's like, oh, okay, yes, I can do this.
Right. And probably what helped also is the consistency. That's what was preached from when you were little until you were a young adult of, we don't quit.
Right. We don't. And we don't give up, and, you can do hard things.
Right.
And so it's just a matter of finishing what you started.
Right.
And you make a goal, and you take those steps, make those changes, whatever you have to do to finish that goal.
Right.
And I mean, yeah, of course, I can say Pastor was right. He always is. He
Right.
knew, oh, she'll be over this in a few weeks, but we just really need to encourage her that she's going to stick it out.
Right. Right. Right.
And, long term, I mean, like you said, you start from a young age. So even from a young age, let's talk and moving into dating, in those late teens, early 20s, my parents always said, don't be quick to fill that void. So if I was quick after that dating relationship had ended and just picked up with someone else right after, would have filled that void myself, I wouldn't have met Derek.
Right.
And so I think you have to even help coach young people through those late teens, early 20s on don't fill that void. They always say, and then I always like to tell young people that if you are busy about God's house and doing what God says to do in his word, and you're serving and you're going to church, he will fill that void for you.
Yes.
And he will make his word come to pass.
Right.
And if you do it yourself, it's not going to be as good, or it could be a flop.
Right.
And we've seen that, Derek and I have seen that, people that haven't been married as long as us, and they're divorcing. Or friends that are married a little bit longer than us, and they're divorcing. And it's heartbreaking.
It's crazy, isn't it? Because people, I think, sometimes assume, okay, my kid's going to get married, so they're going to make it. Just because two people get married doesn't mean that it's going to succeed. No. I mean, it's not like, okay, marry somebody. Just get married.
The next person that walks in.
Yeah,
boom, we're married, and this will work out.
Yeah.
And then, the honeymoon phase ends.
Yes.
And then you're married to that person.
Right.
It's not all sunshine and rainbows and flowers. You have to work through the hard things.
Right. Right.
And every year presents new challenges. Then you add in jobs, you add in kids, you add in life.
Mm-hmm.
And getting older, and then things change in relationships, and things change with family and parents, taking care of parents as you're raising your own kids. It's like you do life together.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not on the same page from the beginning with the basics about God, about church, about tithing, about living for God, about how to even raise your kids, how can you do the hard things together?
Right. So then when they're young adults, those important things need to be the important things.
Yeah, and like you said, we drill that in from the time, from the time we were young, and the young people here in the youth group.
Right.
That this is how you live a life. You live a life dedicated to God.
Mm-hmm.
And so that, our prayer is that when the kids move away to college, they don't lose that relationship with God. Mm-hmm. That they see, I need to live for God. I need to find someone with like values to marry. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you're going to have a really hard life.
Right. From my perspective, and from a church leadership perspective, it seems so basic. It seems like, oh my gosh, everybody should know this.
Yes.
But it just feels like that people just get caught up in different distractions, or like you said, scared of voids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the quiet times, the times
yes.
when it seems like you're in the wilderness,
right?
Or there's famine in the dating world,
right?
And it's like that's when God is going to speak to you,
right?
But if you're filling it with the club and nights out and drinking, drugs, you will never hear God's voice. And so you're on a path where God's got this awesome future for you, and you're like, oh, well, God's way didn't work. I gave it 3 weeks, and so I'm going to go this way and let it destroy the rest of my life.
Yeah, I've told some young adults before that we're facing different types of situations. Things were smooth, and all of a sudden it got hard. Like, look, you just need to be calm, because you don't want to make a bad decision, right? Don't let all this other stuff cause you to make a bad decision that you're going to have to pay for years.
For years, yeah. And sometimes you're right. We get caught up and think, I'll make a rash decision. You're paying for that.
Right. So your parents really instilled that in you, so that they had that consistent message, so that when they came to you as a young adult and said, no, you probably knew the answer.
Right. Always already knew it.
You're right.
It's like a little kid that asks for the fourth snack before dinner time. They know you're going to say no. They just thought, maybe if I ask again, the answer will change.
Right. So what was it that kind of convinced you that I'm not going to quit?
So, just looking at already the amount of time I'd put into it, the amount of hours, the amount of study hours, and then, I knew the cost of what that requires for that degree and thought, you know what? I mean, I'm already more than halfway through. So it would be foolish to stop. You've got to keep going and got to finish because then you have it and you have something to show for that time. And I would encourage parents in the young years of I signed you up for this sport for a season. Oh, you don't like it. Well, we're not going to quit 2 weeks in. We're
Right.
going to finish that season. You want to try
Right.
something else the next time? Yeah, that's great. But it starts when they're little, just with little things that you think, oh, it doesn't matter. But
Right.
it does.
Right.
Um,
Because those kids will look at you with those eyes, or they'll cry or whatever, or start complaining, and you don't want to hear it. You don't want to put up with it.
right.
Or like you dropping off of practice, and they're like, "Oh, practice again."
Right.
You don't want to put that's not fun to put up with.
No.
But it's so important to make that lesson.
Say it. No, we committed.
Right.
There's a financial commitment. There's a commitment to your team. And so this is a season.
Right.
So if we've already said we're going to do it, we're going to do it. We're going to finish.
Right.
And so it's just important for kids and teens to know that.
Yeah. Kids need stability.
Mm-hmm. They really thrive on that.
Yes.
And when everything is as they're used to it, subbing in my girls' school as a sub, you come in and it takes you a while to get to know the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes you end up in a different classroom every day. And that's really hard for kids because they don't know you. You don't know them, the classroom, the structure, the behavior system, it changes.
Yes.
And so kids like the routine. Of course, they may say, oh, this is so boring,
Right.
or my teacher's so boring.
Right.
But really, it makes them comfortable
Yes.
and confident.
Right.
So as an adult, as a parent, your job is to make the home life consistent and comfortable and pretty boring. That your job is to be the adult. Your job is to come home and make them dinner and sit down and do the homework with them.
Right.
That's your job.
Right.
Your job of I'm free. I'm going to explore and I'm going to gallivant and I'm going to, share my videos on social media. Be a parent. That's sometimes.
This is how we study. Watch this.
Yes.
Don't get me started.
I know. So I'm thinking, as a parent, my big thing lately is because it is almost addicting of I'm going to look at my phone. I'm going to check it. I heard a ding. But then you check something else right after that. No, after a certain time, it's family time.
Yes.
Not at work.
Right.
And I can look at that in 30 minutes. But if they are coming to me with, little kids will say, play with me. And that's how they attach. And that's how maybe they had a hard day at school. Riley, my youngest, will say, play with me, Mom. And then it's like in the middle of putting something together, a puzzle, or building her marble run, she'll say, one of my friends was mean to me today. And I'm like,
Right.
oh, what happened? And
out
then
of the blue.
they open up.
Yeah.
But they don't open up when I'm looking at my phone or I'm talking to somebody.
Or laughing at a reel.
Laughing at a reel. Right. And so, you have to be present for those moments.
Right.
And that's when they talk to you. My dad always laughs and he's like, always told Derek, and now he jokes with Derek since he's got 2 girls. It's like, I'm working in my office and I'm focused. I've got my laptop. I'm doing my numbers. Here comes Krystina as a teenager. She sits down. Heavy sigh.
Yeah. Talk to me.
He's like, I really want to keep working on this.
Yes.
But she doesn't do this very often. And if I'm like, I'm busy, she won't come back. Who knows when she would come back. So he always tells Derek, when you're working at your desk or out in the shop, you got to listen. Because girls, they just, all of a sudden, they wait till they're going to explode with some information.
Yes.
Then they're talking to you.
Well, that's keeping the important things important, right? And the big things big is that opportunity to be able to use that.
Yeah, and for parents, it's not convenient, but you have to make that time.
Right.
And treasure that time, especially when they're in those teen years. And when they come to you, it's probably something important to them.
Right. Well, and this is also, we've seen since COVID how it has changed a lot of people's behaviors, and the idea of stability, but stability in church is so massive. Like my kids know we're going to church, and you can say, well, that's because you're full time, but that's the way it would have been even if I wasn't full time, right? We're going to church.
Yeah, and so let's talk about that from a young person getting married to somebody who wasn't raised that way.
Okay.
So we have someone, a friend in our lives where they married somebody that wasn't from the same background as they were. So, so your kid is a young adult. They meet someone, different background, different belief. They're in love.
Right.
They're falling in love.
Stars in the eyes.
But then what are they going to do after they're in love? Where do they go to church? How are they going to raise their kids? And what you gradually see, and the statistics show that basically they end up not being able to agree. So maybe just one of them goes to church and the other one doesn't. And then what kind of example does that set for the kids?
There's not the stability.
There's no stability. Yeah.
It's not there.
And then they're not ingrained with the same level of faith and belief system that you were.
Right. Because this is so true, because this is red warning, red flag, massive as as a pastoral or as leadership. It's like a little they act like it's a little disagreement when they're dating. Right. Oh, we can't really agree on this, but we have seen the other end of that. Then they get married. And it wasn't just a little disagreement. It was a difference in belief.
Right. And how you believe is how you function in your everyday life.
Right.
How you get up. Do you start your prayer time with God?
Right.
Do you even have prayer time anymore?
Right.
I mean, that person doesn't in their own life. So gradually you become like each other.
Right.
In marriage.
Yes.
And so, if one of you is more disciplined than the other one, if one of you has more faith than the other one, it's evident.
Yes.
And then your kids, of course, kids know everything. They're so smart. And so they grow up with that sense too.
Yes.
That there is an imbalance there.
Right.
And it's important for kids to know church is a priority no matter what. So it's always heartbreaking to watch families where it's like, in talking to friends and acquaintances that end up getting divorced, it's like one of the first disagreements. I don't know where we're going to go to church. Somebody doesn't agree.
Yeah, we couldn't find a place to where we were both happy.
Yes, but that's because they don't believe the same from the very beginning.
Exactly.
And that's sad.
Yes.
And I think parents think, well, and it is interesting to me how parents of older teens and young 20s think, well, it's really not my place. But that's then what they say when we're on the fourth and fifth marriage. It's really not my place. These patterns start from a very young age. And, Pastor, it was always his place to say, yeah, I don't think so. I don't see how this is going to work out.
Right.
So,
or faith is very personal. Right. Well, yes, but you're trying to get personal with this person for the rest of your stinking life.
Yes.
This is a big deal.
Talk about it. And talk about, how they were raised and parenting differences.
Right.
I mean,
Or can they sit through a service where the word is actually being preached?
Right.
Or does it offend them and rub them the wrong way to where they can't handle it?
Yeah.
Because you and I know that over the years, you have to handle correction.
Yes, you do. And that's part of life.
Yes.
At work or even in your marriage, you
Right.
know, and you're there to be true partners.
Right.
To help each other. And so sometimes you can't get upset when somebody's like, hey, this is something we have to work on.
Right. And I think also it's not just, are you going to church? It's, how are you going to church? In other words, we're not policemen when it comes to, is someone really worshiping or not and all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to my kids, that's a big deal. Because, you can watch somebody and see, okay, are they really into the service? Are they listening? Or are they just here because they feel like to date my daughter, they have to be here?
Right.
Or to date my son, they have to be here. In other words, you get, that's what's so powerful about having time to see, because I have seen over the years, unfortunately, guys come in to date some girl, and they're like, oh, they're here, they're coming to church. Yeah, but are they really, how are they coming to church?
Exactly. Is this just a checklist for them?
Yes.
Oh, I went on Sunday.
Right.
Oh, I'm too tired to go the next 3 Sundays.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because I mean, we have seen the old act one way before you're married, and as soon as they get married,
Yes.
it's like a different person. And what was quote unquote important before they got married is no longer important after they get married.
I always liked what Pastor told me. He said you need 4 seasons to really get to know someone.
That's good.
So, a guy could be on his best behavior the first 3 months.
Mhm.
Okay, well, life happens, flat tire, change jobs, not a great boss, different things occur. How does he react to that? What is the temperament?
Right.
Because you really don't want to find out after a shotgun wedding and a couple weeks in that you really married a jerk.
Right.
And
Right.
so I think for girls, the risk is higher.
Right.
And they need their parents to really tell them, hey, you can slow down a little bit.
Right.
And that's not the end of the world.
You got time.
Because if you still love each other in 1 year, that's as great as loving each other for 3 days.
Yes. Right.
It's okay.
It's okay.
But you have
right.
to give it time.
Right.
And make sure, you're not marrying a creep or somebody that's going to be unkind to you
Right.
forever.
Right.
And then it's just heartbreaking because for girls, they really need their dads.
Yeah.
And that's missing a lot in this culture.
Yeah.
And, across the board, I was reading this article where this sexual predator said he always looked for girls that did not have a dad. They was looking for the absent father.
Yeah.
Or the fathers that looked like they were weak or they probably had their own weird
Disinterested
things happening.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but a protective father, a father that was present, that was there, never would always go somewhere else. And so you have to think of the dating world kind of like that too. Because sometimes, you have to think, okay, their end goal is to hurt her if they're not the right guy. So I need to be present. I need to find out about him, to encourage her, okay, this is great, give it time.
Mm-hmm.
There's no rush here.
Right.
And I need to make sure that she's protected because there's nothing more precious than the son or daughter you spent all those years raising.
Right.
I mean, why after 17 years be like, okay, good luck.
Right.
This has been wonderful.
Right.
Because as the grandparent, you're going to have to help raise the grandchildren if they're struggling.
Well, and parents, even when your kids get married, there's still invested interest there, right? And there's still this I've done this for my kids, I've raised my kids, and now I expect them to do this.
Yes.
I expect them to act like this and to act like, and you
Right.
don't want to wake up and be like every day just inundated with, oh my gosh, this is terrible.
One bad decision after another. I mean, you want to be their cheering section.
Right.
Yeah, this is great. You got that promotion at work. That's awesome. Where they want to call you, they want to tell you the good things, and you want to cheer them on, show up to the sports games for the grandkids, and be a part of that life.
Right.
And you don't want to watch your kids struggle.
And I think that Christians sometimes struggle with this because, I call it super spiritual attitude of, if someone's attending a church service, that's great. But when we're talking about dating your kids or marrying your kids, that's a whole different level. Mm-hmm. So there's a different standard to that, So if someone wants to come to church and be around a little bit here or there, oh, God bless, that's great. But if we're talking about, dating my child or marrying my child, we're gonna get down in the nitty gritty and we're gonna think about this differently, because it seems like Christians sometimes just try to use that same standard for like church attendance when it comes to like their kids marrying somebody.
Right. And where it's like they're just loosey-goosey with all of this.
Yes.
But it matters.
Right.
And so you think, okay, so, show me who you are. And I think as parents, it's okay to get to know the person that your son or daughter is dating. Get to know them, get to know all about them, let it be more of a family thing. even when they're older, it's okay to invite them to do things with you, seeing them in different lights and, fun outings together.
Or how about this? Do they drink alcohol?
Right.
Are they a social drinker?
Yeah.
Do they not really see a big deal about it, or is it a big deal to them? These are like
Big things.
these are big things.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're
So if you're never really around the person that your son or daughter is dating, you don't know.
right.
And so as a young person, they may try to cover it up. Oh, I just won't tell mom or dad. That's not a big deal. It's okay.
Right.
But for mom and dad, if they spent more time with them, they would see, oh, that's a red flag.
Right.
It's a big red flag. And my child is blinded by love.
Yes.
They got
Hormones.
those rose-colored glasses
Feelings.
going on.
Yes.
They think this is going to end with beautiful music.
Right. Well, I think that's what always love about Pastor Gina Sue, and you grew up in it, is the practical aspect of you can be a Christian and be practical at the same time.
You can, and you can be smart.
Yeah.
And think, that's some red flags. When I was even an older teenager, my parents always said there's safety in numbers. So you don't always need to be alone. And that's just to protect you, especially if it's somebody you're dating you didn't grow up with. You don't really know them. So they're like, make it a group thing. Friends there, big brothers there. I did several dates with Austin. When, that was also good for him because he gets the points with my parents of, yeah, big brother. I helped out. But, he also could kind of, ask those questions that needed to be asked where maybe somebody you're casually going out with for the first or second time would be as on guard as they were with a parent.
Right.
So always get your older kids involved in the younger kids' lives. Can you send them out there together?
And I think having a home where your kids want to hang out helps with that, because if they're hanging out at the house just kind of around in a casual situation, you will find out a lot about that person.
You will. And friends too,
Yes.
We like to have people over to our house. I love, inviting daughters and moms together to do things.
Oh, that's
And,
neat.
It helps because you get to really know the kids and the parents at the same times, and sometimes Derek's like, now, did you invite the whole family over? Is it just you doing this? And
He just wants to know if he's got to talk to somebody or not.
Make small talk
Sorry,
for a little
Derek,
bit.
for this problem. I understand as a man, I'm like, okay, who's coming over and why?
But it's good that, you take an active interest in your kids' lives. Yes, I know. They get to be the teen years, and they'd wish parents would disappear for a little bit. And I totally understand that. That's what youth group's for. Mm-hmm. Okay, so your kids want a little bit of freedom, they can go have freedom at Club Rock. Mm-hmm. They can come to the special nights. They can come to the special events. My parents were like, yeah, we'll drop you off at youth group. Have fun.
Right.
Then we'll pick you up.
Right.
Or somebody could drop you off at home.
Right.
But my parents never let me go spend a full weekend at somebody's house.
Right.
And not check in. I don't think I ever spent a full weekend at anybody's house ever. But
So dangerous.
I would be like with Abby for a night, but even still, there's a beginning and an end to that.
Yes.
Because, teenagers can make foolish decisions if they're not checked in on.
Right.
There's no parent. So you have to know, okay, where are they going? Who's the parent there? But even still, in this day and age, Derek and I have already decided we would never do sleepovers. Mm-hmm. Now, I know that's a hot topic for a lot of people. But we just decided we never would.
The risk is
just Derek's background and the things he's seen. He's just like, that's a no-go for me.
Yes.
And so, but for even just hanging out, well, what are they doing when they're hanging out? Who's there? Who's coming and going? Does your kid, are they prepared if somebody tries to show them images that what to do in that situation? It's a harsh world. So I don't think you can overprotect. Mm-hmm. And, you can do things together in fun groups. You can make sure your kids go on dates together in groups. And I think it helps provide safety in numbers.
Right.
There's so many variables. And so for parents, I would encourage you, be more involved. Mm-hmm. Not like, let me see that right then and there. You kind of have to be a little bit sneaky about it because kids will delete stuff as soon as it's coming in. But you kind of have to be like, so talk to me about your day. Hey, you want to have your friends over for pizza on Friday night? Yeah, you have to be more involved. You have to put in the time and the effort. But then you're getting to know them and their friends. because a lot of things kids are introduced to are through their friends.
Right.
So if you have a red flag about somebody, you can say, I don't think we should spend as much time with that person.
Right. And there's balance,
Yeah, there's
obviously, but it's better to be on that side of, look, I'm gonna check this.
I would rather, be more protective than to be filled with guilt that I didn't do enough to protect my girls.
Absolutely.
And I know my parents felt the same way.
Absolutely.
They were always careful about who I dated.
Right.
And, they put in that time of getting to know someone. I mean, when Derek came and visited them, I thought, well, we'll see. Because the last guy came and visited them and never came back.
Well, that's funny because Pastor Sue said the same thing. She's like, I just was sure that I think she says a story about, she told you, because I guess y'all went to have coffee.
Yes.
Here I am telling your story. But
No, you're good.
You went to have coffee while Derek and your dad were meeting, and she was like, okay, if I need to take him back to the airport, I can do that.
Yeah.
She was preparing you for her.
She was for the end. And I know my mom, maybe being my mom, she's like, oh, this probably won't work out.
Yes.
So I'll just, get her already in that mindset of
yes.
this probably won't work out.
Yes. But once again, that's parenting.
Yeah, it is.
So how old were you when that happened?
Oh, we were 24.
So see, there you are, 24 years old, but yet your parents are still parenting.
Right, and helping.
Yes.
I mean, I was working here full time where it should be like, okay, great, you're an adult. We don't even have to talk to you about this. Oh, you're dating some guy. Good for you.
Right.
Like where they're usually introduced to the guy when it's like, hey, we're getting married.
Right.
Well, you can't object then.
Right.
Like they've spent months together.
Right.
They spent weeks together.
Right.
They've already been intimate.
Right.
Your chance to get to know or object was come and gone. And so, for my parents, it was, oh, great. Yeah, you can fly in. You can meet, have breakfast with just my dad. And then everything depends on that.
So when you had that attitude of, okay, you need to go meet my dad, that was a willing attitude, wasn't it? I mean, you didn't, you wanted that.
I did, because, dating someone and then having them meet your parents and coming to church and then breaking up in an airport is harder. That was like very uncomfortable. The plane ride back to Missouri was just very uncomfortable. You have seats together and you're like, okay.
So how not to get too specific, but so how long were you dating that other guy before they met your parents? He met your parents?
It would have been a couple months.
Okay.
Yeah, living there and then coming, so it's not too long.
Right.
I don't think, because my dad came up, visited, I think before Christmas break, met him, but it was like a quick lunch. My dad's like, he seems fine, which, my dad using the word fine in his vocabulary is...
That's not like...
We'll wait and see, but I'm not excited.
It doesn't make you feel real confident
Right.
or comfortable.
So then it was like some time passed before he came to visit here. So I would think, jump in. They're dating someone. That's great. Yes, please don't tell your kids, you have to date this person and I'm going to, I'll text them for you. Or let's text their parents and plan this wedding, even though you guys just started dating. Don't go overboard the other direction. But it's going to say, why don't you invite them over for dinner? And your kid's more likely to be like, oh, really? Okay, great. You're expressing an interest in their life.
I think that's so good to do it early, because you're right, after a couple months, especially for a teenager or a young adult.
Yeah.
A couple months could seem like they're on their 15-year anniversary.
Yeah, right. For this a long time.
It's
when
a
you're
long
young.
time for them, and so then all of a sudden the parents come in and they're like, no, and they're like, but what?
Yeah. So for Derek and I, it was at the beginning, and his breakfast with my dad went good. Then he came to church and it went good, and then he came back. And so for them, it was like, oh, he came back.
Right.
That's good. Maybe he can stick it out.
Right.
So.
But that's so cool that even at that age, the input of your parents was a big deal to you.
And I think probably a hard moment for them was after the honeymoon, Derek and I driving away and moving to Missouri. I think that was probably a hard moment for them, but they never expressed anything but joy and happiness for me, because my dad says he always told my mom of, look, if she's really in love, and she's really happy, then that's all that matters. Because otherwise you run the risk of, well, she could be really disappointed and really heartbroken.
Well, I remember, we'll see if we have to edit this out or not, but I remember when I guess you were dating Derek, and Derek had that challenge, physical challenge, the big physical challenge that he was going through. And I remember him telling us that, he told you that he would rather you. I'm trying to think of how he phrased it. Something to the extent of he would rather you experience the love of your life. He can't keep you back from experiencing, because he hated that you had to go through this, or that Derek had to go through this, but he wanted you to be able to experience the true love of your life.
Right.
And so that was kind of his mentality of, but once again, that goes back to the heart, right? And you probably knew that through all your years, that your dad wanted the best for you.
Yes, and that's where that protection comes in.
Yes.
And the love. And so I knew they were never trying to hurt me in any way or hold me
Right.
back in some way.
Right.
And so you have to help your kids see that. And that starts from the baby stages. You're there for
Yes.
them. You love them. You know your parents love you.
Right.
You know they would take that hurt from you if they could.
Right.
They'd bear that physical ailment for you if they could, so you wouldn't have to go through that.
That goes back to that consistency, stability, and they put you first.
Right, always.
But you knew that. So
So
that probably helped. By the time you're 24, you're okay with your parents being that involved because you knew their heart.
Right, yeah, and they even, helped me walk through those things dating Derek on making sure that I was still thinking with a clear head through all that time in his life when he's walking through doctors and surgery and hospital and, then what's next. But yeah, my dad never wanted to hold me back. And
Right.
he knew that I truly loved Derek. And for me, that was always a big thing was, finding someone that loved me how my dad did, that was always an encouragement and that hardworking and a solid guy, but that was firm when he needed to be firm and very loving when he needed to be very loving.
Mm-hmm.
And, I watched Derek, and the same personality types play out with our girls. Derek's very firm, but very loving.
Mm-hmm.
And, they just, is Dad home yet? Oh, Dad's not home yet. Like, they live for that. And Riley, we landed, and my mom's there. Riley, Emma. And Riley's first question, where's Grandpa?
Oh.
My mom always starts chuckling. I'm here. I brought the snackies. I'm taking you to lunch.
Your mom's so nice.
And she's so nice. And Riley's like, where's Grandpa?
Where's
Like,
some moms will be like, well, okay,
No, it's like they're the star. Like, they know that love.
Yeah.
Like he shows up and he loves everybody. Everybody's having a great time. Everybody's spending time together. And they know he loves them.
But those moments are not achieved by chance.
No.
We're talking about a lifetime of consistency and stability, and then you reap those rewards.
Right. You reap the rewards where I think for him and my mom, they think, okay, Austin and Jessica, they married like faith. They have similar goals for their children. Everything's great. Derek and I, we married. We loved each other like faith. We raised our girls. They go to a private Christian school too. They're in church, and they are reaping those rewards.
Yes.
Where they're not grieving
Right.
for any of us.
Right.
And so I think parents have to not lose track of, when does your job end? Well, I don't know. I feel like for them, they went from, okay, parenting, and my dad always said, until you're well educated and well married, my job is not done. And even now, he likes calling me, being like, hey, how's it going? How's Derek doing? How are the girls doing? And, I think that's a whole new phase of life.
Yes.
And it's a good part of life.
Yes.
So I think when parents are in the thick of it with their young people, you keep the basics.
Yeah.
Don't lose sight of the basics. Keep them in church. Keep them committed in church. Let them grow up in the youth group. Let them serve. I mean, they need to be not only here breathing the air, but they need to be serving.
Yes.
So when they're too old for youth group, what do we do?
Right.
And, my parents were always like, help out in every area. Figure out what you like. Same as preparing you to get a job.
Right.
And go through college and get, or some type of training that you can use for your career of help out in church.
Right.
Do you like working with kids? Do you like working on the camera or in the sound or ushering, greeting?
Right.
Figure it out. Go figure it out when you're a young teenager. And then it helps, that they feel like, oh, I am a part of the church. I am here for a purpose.
Yes.
I am also a blessing to the people coming in to hear about God.
Right.
So you look around church and you see the ones that kind of peter out in high school. That's because their parents aren't serving, helping, invested. I mean, the kids that are here that you mentored all these years in the youth group are because their parents were invested.
Absolutely.
And so that helps them see the investment.
Absolutely.
Of I'm here, I'm serving. This is not just a place where I go on Sunday when it's Easter and Christmas.
Right.
Maybe once in the summer.
Right.
But no, this is our home. It's another home for us.
Right.
So kids have to see that.
And if this is new information for anybody out there, or maybe there's people that have not made the right decisions on parenting, the start now.
Mm-hmm. Right. Start now. Just
Start
get them
now.
in church.
Yeah.
Get them excited about God's word.
Yeah.
Figure out an area where you can help or join a men's group and come pray with the men. And then for the women, come to Girl Talk.
Yes.
It's always a great time. Any of the Girl Talks. Get your kids in church, in the youth group, to know other kids. And encourage them to spend time with those kids. Because you want your kids around like-minded kids.
Absolutely.
And same for you, friendships. Invest in friendships that are godly.
Right.
So maybe you need to cut out certain friends. Maybe you have to stop certain habits. Maybe we have to change things you do as a family.
Right.
And carve out more family time.
Right.
Without phones.
Right.
Everybody leave your phones. We're going to have dinner.
Right.
Something Derek always loved growing up was that they would do family dinner. Of course, back then you had the phone on the wall. But, when we have dinner with our girls, no phones. And Derek knows if he gets a call from a certain number, he probably better answer it because there's a problem in the city. But, besides that, everything waits. You have dinner, talk about your day, and it's important. It usually doesn't last very long, but even if your kids are older, take them to dinner. What I found out mentoring some kids that went through Evangel since I've lived there, they love food. Not cafeteria food.
Right.
They get tired of yogurt in their little mini fridges and noodles.
Yeah.
And then whatever on the meal plan.
Right.
If you're like, hey, who wants steak?
Yeah.
There were some girls a few years ago and they always wanted steak and vegetables. And so I'd be like, hey, you guys free for dinner? Yes.
Right.
Free for dinner.
Right.
Hey, when's a good time to meet up and have coffee?
Right.
Your young person will respond to you the same way.
Right.
If you're like, they've got a job, but in today's world, those job dollars aren't going as far. So it's like, hey, how about I treat you to dinner?
Right. Right.
And then they get a good meal out of it, and you're also getting some conversation.
Right.
So, and you can do that one-on-one at any age.
Yes.
My dad always took my brother individually, dinners, trip, and then he would do the same for me. He'd be like, hey, let's get in the car and go check out this piece of property over here. Hey, let's have lunch, and he's driving and I'm talking, but that gives him, or I'm captive. Yes. I'm in the car.
Right.
And it's like a set amount of time. Right. There's no friends around. There's nothing going on except you're talking. Spend time with your kids one-on-one.
Right.
And that helps them too.
Because that's the most important.
They're the most important. Okay, so they come to church, they're saved. If they've given their heart to Christ, what's next? The most important decisions are their education and then who they're going to marry.
Yes.
So they need to finish some type of a training, some type of a degree, something that okay, they can earn money with this. They're set up on that side.
Yeah.
But now who are they going to marry?
Right.
Do you want them to marry somebody that's got their own long history after you've sheltered them, you've protected them,
Right.
you've nurtured them?
Right.
You know, you have to watch out for somebody that's like, oh, I'm just going to use them and throw them away.
Right.
And so be
Right.
involved.
Yes. Yeah. Well, we love having you around.
Thanks. It's always good to be here.
Gonna hit the youth tonight.
Yep. It'll be good. Going to talk
Yes.
about compounding problems and problems that just keep building, and how do we handle those problems?
They don't just go away when you close your eyes.
No, and hope that test grade will magically, you know, maybe if I throw away that test grade, my parents will never know. There's a report card that also comes to your parents eventually.
Yes.
You can't hide from it.
And that bad grade goes into a bunch of other grades.
Yes.
So it's, yes, oh Lord, have mercy. Praise the Lord. That's good. Yeah, so glad to have you back. And we look forward to having you at Girl Talks. And I know you speak occasionally every once in a while around here. And we usually put you work on Mother's Day weekend, usually,
Yes.
sometime around there. So if you have anything you have questions about, or maybe you want a specific subject matter, discussed, leave us in the comments, email us, let us know. And we'd love to talk about and discuss it. So thank you very much.